Peace and blessings, everyone. Welcome back once again to Baddest Chaplain Podcast. Today, we're here with a very special guest, Virginia Burke, the founder of the Museum of Jamaican Ancestry and Heritage. Virginia, it's so wonderful to be here with you. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, it's always a pleasure for sure. So, talk to me a bit about the genesis of your work. How did you first decide, and what was the inspiration that told you, you know what, I want to be involved in this. I want to be involved in preserving and sharing Jamaican culture and heritage with everyone.
Well, I can only say it was a bit of a trifecta. I mean, it comes from way back. I have to credit my father for introducing me to museums and all that. So I grew up with a love of history and stuff. And then also working here in St. Elizabeth, where I live. I've been on the school board at a local primary school for about 14 years now. And 4 years ago, I've been giving the children art classes. And when they said, discovered that they didn't even know who Miss Lou was, it broke my heart.
Wow.
And yeah,
Of course.
so I was trying to do a program actually for self-help to try and find things to do to make money living in the countryside here. And they said, what lights a spark in you? And all of a sudden, I had done an interview earlier in the day about Jamaican food because I have a background
Hmm.
in cuisine and cookbooks and things like that. And it just hit me. I said, I'm going to build a museum. I'm crazy. I mean, who builds museums? Who gets says that? And it wouldn't go away.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't. The thought,
Yeah.
the ambition, the feeling of it. And the idea originally was to build a small museum downtown. Downtown Kingston is going through a bit of a transformation now. And there's a
Right.
buzz with the art walk and all the murals on the walls
Hmm.
and young people going down and getting creatives, artists and so
Yeah.
on, getting very excited about it. And I just felt I'd love to be part of that. I had talked about it
Hmm.
years ago. We have always discussed what could we do with downtown. But doing a brick and mortar, I asked friends to help me. And, the people who got on board, Pat, who was on our board, said to me, I'll help you, but I want this to be modern. Let's do something really special, something different. And it's actually been 4 years that we've been trying to investigate what it takes to really build a museum. So we have
Right.
spoken to hundreds and hundreds of people and connected to museum experts. I mean, it's been quite a journey. And I would say about a year ago, a bit over a year ago, in talking to development banks and people like that, the idea that was supposed to be our second phase, which is a mobile museum, started to get traction. And we realized that this really captured people's imagination. They thought, a mobile museum, no, that's really interesting. That's something different. And we said, well, the people that we want to reach are the ones who probably won't make it to Kingston. So,
Right.
like where I live in this rural part of St. Elizabeth, it's very
Yeah.
unlikely that these kids would ever have an opportunity to go and visit a museum in Kingston. So I guess in a way, and it came from many angles that these children are the ones that really inspired me to try and make a difference in their lives, to see
Certainly.
them get the kind of exposure that I had as a child. I
Right.
was very lucky to get, my dad took us to museums. So I had seen that from by the time I was 11 or whatever, I had been walking in the Louvre and
Come
seeing
on.
Pompeii and all of that. And I realized
Yeah.
how it affects you as a human being to
Hmm.
expand your vision. It helps you, thinking outside of the box as a creative person and so on. So that's really how it started.
No,
And
I
I
love
mean,
that
we
so
have a
much
long way to
because
go.
certainly, but I think what I love most about it is that you really understood that you were trying to meet a particular need, and as great as it would be, I had a chance to see all the beautiful progress in downtown Kingston about 3 years ago now. Like, it still wouldn't meet the need of communities in St. Bess and Portland and Hanover and all these spaces that are much more rural, and the children wouldn't be able to access it. So I really commend you for that, because that's really being mission minded. So I guess I would ask you, how would you describe the museum's mission in your own words?
Well, I would have to say that it is a mission of transformation, of
Hmm.
restoration. We would like to bring to young people the feeling that Jamaica really belongs to them, in the sense that it is their responsibility to preserve and conserve our heritage, and to understand. The only way to do that is to understand it and to know what it is. So that really is the mission, is to reach out to people and have them discover that we have a very powerful history. There's a lot
No
in there.
question.
There's a whole lot to unpack. And this can make a
Absolutely.
difference in your life. As Marcus Garvey said,
Hmm. Yes.
famously, if you don't know
Right.
where you came from, you can't know where you're going. So
That's it.
that really has been a byword for us, to say that's what we're after.
No doubt about it. So, as you've been, I love how you said earlier that you're sort of studying the ways in which museums are done. Like in your study so far, and even in your implementation of Moja, how have you noticed the distinctions between this museum and other cultural institutions in Jamaica?
Well, I wouldn't even say how much. I feel strongly that the children that I've been working with, the young people, or most Jamaicans, we have no culture of museum going in Jamaica. It's very few young people
Yeah.
that really have access to it. And you will find that they don't really care about a broken cup sitting in a glass case where they have to read a lot of
Yeah.
information. So if we
Yeah.
want to reach these young people, we're going to have to come with something really interesting where they're doing the discovering and we
Hmm.
are providing the
Hmm.
access to the information in creative ways,
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah.
very interactive. And this can't be top down.
Hmm.
When we go into a community, we want to, first of all, connect with community leaders and the elders there, and have them bring us in and talk to us. So we're having a conversation, a dialogue. It's
Right.
not a class. They're not going to go to a class. It's not a
Yeah. It can't
classroom.
feel like school again.
No, it can't feel like school. So we really believe that engaging kids has to come from oral histories and art and
Hmm.
storytelling, a lot of storytelling, because we want to collect stories as much as we want, as much as we want to tell stories, of course.
Of
And
course.
so who knows? I mean, this is really quite an exploration. And from the very beginning, we've been talking, we have one advisor who is in Australia. And what he brings to the table is
Hmm.
he loves Jamaica. He's been writing a children's story, Jared, and
Lovely.
you know, he got the Churchill Fellowship, went around the world studying countries that had First Peoples or were
Right.
enslaved or had colonial rule. So he kind of understood a lot of that and has, been there on the sidelines giving us advice. Last year, we had the gift of
Hmm.
all gifts, where Carla Preck from the Bronx Children's Museum heard about what we were doing and offered to help. And she has been by my
Love that.
side, I mean, for over a year now, just really coaching me along and helping us as a team,
Yeah.
helping us to do, because
Awesome.
she was one of the founding directors of the Bronx Children's. And even though we're not trying to do a
Awesome.
children's museum per se, they also
Right.
started with a bus. So she understands what it takes
Yes.
to do. So we're getting help from
Absolutely.
outside on that level. We've also been talking to a huge, big, massive museum company, Gallagher and Associates, that have built about 500 museums around the world. And they understand what it takes to bring people in and connect to them. And, we've learned from them that it's an emotional thing, that what you're touching are people's
Yeah.
emotions in order to get them really engaged. And we are trying to bring about a cultural literacy for Jamaicans. And
Of
cultural
course. Of
literacy then
course.
brings you into a level where you really understand your traditions. So therefore, it makes you a better citizen.
Hmm.
And it's a broader concept,
Yes.
who you are and how you live with other people, how you understand what art means. And
Right. Sure. Yep. Right where the road will take us. Mhm.
fixing up. So we're not actually on the road yet. But what we're doing is collecting the stories and the people. In that sense, talking to a lot of people. We've had amazing number of volunteers because I don't know if you realize it, but a lot of funding has dried up for projects like ours in the past year or
Shameful.
so, or yeah, in the last 6 months, things have gotten a bit
Oh,
haywire with aid and people just not sure about what's happening. And some of the institutions we thought we could count on, I don't know if we can anymore. So we know we have to help
right.
ourselves. And that's really my message to your
Of
audience.
course.
If it's people from the diaspora, I mean, get on board, guys. We really need help to do this.
Yeah,
It's our
absolutely.
responsibility to make it happen.
It's absolutely our responsibility. I totally agree with you. And I'm just thinking about to your earlier point, Virginia, there are so many stories to tell. This museum could, never run out of content. So how do you decide which stories, which artifacts, traditions that you're going to highlight? You want to include everything, but how are you going to decide we need to highlight this?
That's a good question. And I've come around to it now because my background is in food. I've written 2 cookbooks.
Hmm.
I worked, I was with Walker's
Awesome.
Wood Caribbean Food for 20 years. I took jerk cooking out to the world. I went to all the food shows
Yes.
and I was the marketing director. I designed all the labels for Walker's Wood products.
Uh-huh.
I wrote 2 cookbooks with them. And so food is that I've always had an interest in foodways. I would say more so than
Mhm.
cooking. I've always been interested in where our food came from. And if you think about it,
Right.
food is a common denominator. You can talk about the out of many one
Mhm.
people just by having that
Mhm.
conversation through food. So food is
Yes.
involved in all our traditions. It's our history. What the Tainos were doing. They started our agriculture. It's the food that they developed in Jamaica, the pineapples and the cassava and barbecue. And
Mhm.
this is where it started.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Jamaicans don't even realize we 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 own the pineapple. It didn't come from Hawaii. It came from
Yeah.
the Caribbean. Well, through Brazil,
That's right.
through the Tainos, but it's been here a very long time. And the same thing with cocoa for chocolate.
Yeah.
Milk chocolate was discovered in Jamaica through Sir Hans Sloane, and he added milk and sugar to it. And that's not the way the Central
Yeah.
Americans were using it. So we have a lot of things through food. So we've decided that this is a really wonderful way of a channel through which we can discuss our entire history through using food. And since it's something I know a bit about and I have a passion of, I felt comfortable in choosing this as our first stream as such.
Yeah. No, no, I love that. Well, before I even go to my next question, I just feel like I need to say personally thank you because God knows how many cookouts I've used Walker's Wood jerk seasoning to, to make sure the food is great. So I owe you a debt.
Well, Walker's Wood started as a community project, and that was really where I got
Yeah.
that inspiration to do something that's community minded and bring people on board. Let us all have a participate in this.
Sure. There's a lot, and I think even some of what you're saying kind of touches on this, where there's such a chasm between, the history of Jamaica, the traditional understandings of Jamaica, the ways in which, young people understand Jamaica, and of course, how the world understands Jamaica. So,
Absolutely.
with all of that, with all of that going around, like what aspects of Jamaican ancestral heritage do you think are most underrepresented or misunderstood?
Whew, that's a that's a toughie. I do want to say that
Yeah.
Bob Marley was also um, very much a part of me being who I am because I met him when I was in high school and I knew him when I went
Okay,
away
cool.
when I when I went to college, my first job was in I'm a graphic designer, so my first job was doing
Uh-huh.
newsletters. And he saw me doing all of this over the years. He invited me to meet with him in Miami, and I met his fan club person, the lady who ran his fan club. And he wanted us to talk and meet. And we decided we couldn't do this out of Miami. It had to be done in Jamaica. And so he brought me down to put his
Yeah.
newsletter together for him. And of course, I got to meet, the elders, Mortimer Planner, and all these people that were
Yeah.
involved in the movement. And we followed Bob. We were, Cindy Breakspear is my best friend. So I was right in the middle of all of
Wow.
this. I was with her
Yeah.
when Damien Marley was born,
Right.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
took the first pictures.
That's awesome.
So, so this
That's
is
awesome.
very much part of my grounding in who we are as Jamaicans, because I crossed that road from maybe an uptown person to meeting Bob and all these folks and all the music and, getting really exposed on
Yeah.
that level. And it brought my interest in Africa. I worked in Nigeria. One of my jobs took me to Liberia and Nigeria. And, all
Wow.
of that, that interested Bob as well, he was
Mhm,
about to go
mhm.
on tour and do all of that.
Right.
My grandfather parents are from Seaford Town. My grandfather was a farmer.
Mhm.
We've gone and met my grandmother's family from Maroon Town. My husband, who
Yeah.
loves to do ancestry, he discovered
Yeah.
my slave family, my slave grandmothers that were
Wow.
enslaved at Green Park Estate. I mean, it was amazing how he
Yeah, yeah.
found them. And I've never forgotten their
Right.
names, Isabel and Margaret
Yeah.
and Jessie that were there, And so I get the chills whenever I think of them. It really affects me. And I think a lot of Jamaicans don't
Certainly.
realize that people like me that they might think are just privileged from the European side of Jamaica doesn't have
Yeah.
those African roots. Sure as anything do, we are so
Right.
mixed up. I have
Yeah.
24 world regions in me. Of course, I'm interested
Of
in,
course.
in my people. And of course, I know that I'm
Yeah.
Jamaican from my ancestor that came here in 1655. And
Wow.
when you do your ancestry and you discover these roots and these people in your past, there's something happens to you. And this is what a lot of us
Yeah.
never had. And I remember going to the Appleton estate where they just built a memorial to enslaved people. It's not a huge thing, but it has names all around it. And I asked one of the guides to
Yeah.
just show me. And she came with me and we were standing there and I looked at it and it had Isabel on it. And I said, oh my God, that's the name of one of my it wasn't her. I'm not saying it was my Isabel.
Right, but
But
still,
when
it
I
just it
told
really
her
grabbed
that,
you.
yeah, she said to me, oh my God, you know who those people were in your family? She says, I don't even know my grandparents. And she didn't know where they came from and
Something.
who they were. And I realized the two of us
Yeah.
stood there with tears streaming down our face because something happened there
Mhm.
when we were talking, about that belonging,
Yeah.
that identity. Who am I? Where did I come from? It's so important for us to search and find. And we shouldn't discard
Absolutely.
the fact that yes, some of these old houses and buildings were built by slaves, enslaved people. I keep saying I've got to learn how to keep my words because we have to
Yeah. Enslaved.
decolonize
Yeah.
what we were brought up to say and how we were taught to
For
think.
sure.
So this is a big part of our work is to be very sensitive to all of this. And
Mhm.
therefore, we have to find the historians that can speak that language and help us to connect and do the repair work and the restoration that must be done for Jamaicans to feel whole and really move ahead, especially those who are underprivileged in areas that they don't have access to this information.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's incredibly powerful because to your point, you almost took my breath away when you said 1655 because I think about how many people can't go back 75 years, can't go back 100 years in their family's history, much less to go back centuries. So it really there's such a deep need, and I think that in a way, this work helps participate in people's healing. You know, there's a sense of closure and so much of that was lost because of the slave trade that, being able to say, here's where, your forebears were, here's where they came from, here's how they lived, helps to paint a richer story and give us a bigger narrative than just what we have currently.
Yeah. I've been considering doing DNA, trying to get it offered as part of the museum if people are interested.
Hmm.
Because what, you know, to know that some of my family came from Benin and Nigeria. I know mostly
Yeah,
Nigeria, but
right.
it's interesting because if we can ever travel back, I would love to make connections to those countries so that we can have
Certainly.
conversations with Jamaicans and people from Ghana or Nigeria or wherever to really discuss
Hmm.
who we are. And I think it's important for Jamaicans to recognize how we developed with a lot of the same, but how we also developed differently, how what came
Yeah.
into our lives has affected us and influenced us, and who we are now is not the same people really that had we remained and been able to stay where we
Hmm.
were. But what a journey. So it's all very
Truly.
intriguing. I think part of what we're doing, I mean, I was one of the founders of Jamaicans for Justice, and it was a
Hmm.
father, gosh, I must remember his name, that actually came up with the title because he said, Father Albert, and he said to us, what Jamaicans want most of all is justice. It's a sense of the fact that
Yeah.
things for me are different for you. That's not fair.
Right.
And that still exists today, where people feel that there is
No
no
doubt.
real justice. So this work that we're doing, it's complex but it's important.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt about it. We've talked at length about its impact, the impact of your work in the museum, on the mainland of Jamaica. But just thinking about the diaspora, we kind of glanced at it and talked about that sort of collective responsibility. Those of us whose grandparents came to the States or went to Canada, went to the UK, and all throughout the world. Talk to me about what your hopes are for this museum with regard to contributing to a deeper sense of identity among Jamaicans, both at home and in the diaspora.
Well, as I said to you, in talking to people from the diaspora, one of the things that one of their first feelings of homesickness is food. That too, when they
Yeah,
have to live
true.
abroad, what do they want the most is they miss yard food. They want the ackee and the saltfish and what have you, and it just can't come right. No green banana. What
That's
did
right.
So I know that the Jamaicans in the diaspora, they love, you say things like, boy, you're sweet like ripe mango, and they just burst into laughter. They love stories like that. And you find that the younger kids, they don't know how to cook. Their parents are not handing it down.
Hmm.
They're losing a lot of the traditions and they're hungry for it. And they should understand how
Yeah,
important it is to preserve these things because we need to know where we came from and what it was all about. So
yeah.
I think that, and that goes for, the UK, the US, Canada, wherever Jamaicans are. I really hope that they will, if they hear about us, Moja, Museum of Jamaican Ancestral Heritage, that they'll look us up and get on board because the museum belongs to all of us.
Right. Oh, I love that. You were talking, and I was trying to find the lines for it, but you just reminded me of one of Miss Lou's poems where she talks about being in England and a man starts to cry when he hears about rice and peas. Just like just the way in which, to your point, home is just so connected to that sense of food and what's on the plate. It's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Just as an
So,
aside, my mom lives with us. Oh, sorry, I was gonna say my mom lives with us, and she made curry chicken, and I no longer eat meat, and I almost teared up because it just smelled so good and reminded me of being a child. I was like, oh, I can't have any of this.
that's one of my best dishes, I'm told, is my curry chicken.
Oh,
Oh
hurts
gosh.
my heart.
Sorry about
That's all good. It's all good. I have
I,
my
I,
curry lentils and pretend it's the same
yeah,
thing.
yeah. Well, yeah, of course. And you potatoes, curried potatoes are wonderful with chickpeas and all that. So you can,
Yeah.
and then you can put
Hmm.
any amount of Scotch bonnet pepper in that you want, because of course the pepper is the
There it
secret.
is. That's it.
But
That's it. That's it.
I want
For
to
sure.
mention to you, just in case it doesn't come up,
Mm,
is the
mhm,
point that we really are looking for a lot of collaborations. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. So things
mhm.
that can be just brought in, and continued. Groups that have started other things. We would also like to be a platform for people who have skills and talent and dancers, storytellers, drummers, whatever you are, come with us on the road.
Yeah, yeah.
Come and meet the people. So there'll be opportunities
Mhm.
for a lot of interaction that way. And
Love that.
if you are
Absolutely love
someone in the diaspora and you have a skill that you feel we could film you and make a documentary, if you can only do one presentation personally, then we can at least have
it.
that
Mhm.
and we want to show people what excellence looks like. We want to do things that are a
Absolutely.
little bit different, that are new and fresh,
Yeah,
taking the past
yeah.
and adapting it so that it can be used in the future.
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of the
And I love
orange
that.
economy, but the orange economy is a way for creative people to get involved in in the economic side of the country, in our economy, and contributing to the
Yeah, yeah,
economy and
yeah.
making a good living off the economy instead of just being relegated to, oh, you are a craft worker. There's nothing wrong with a craft worker, but because we have to compete
No.
with China, if you're a craft worker making beautiful artisanal work, you can't sell it for $5 to
Mhm.
compete with the imported goods. And this has really messed
Right.
people up a lot, and I would like to
Mhm.
see that we can make things that are more excellent and sell it for a lot more money. And therefore you could survive off your beautiful craft.
Good living.
Yeah,
Love that.
yeah. And
So
and
talk to me about the
respected.
reception. 100% want it to be respected. But talk to me a bit about the reception you've gotten thus far from young people, whether it's about, collaborating, inviting them as you're just describing to be a part of the exhibit. Like, have they sort of taken you up on the offer? Has there been resistance from younger people who may not fully get what you're trying to articulate?
I don't think there's been any resistance. I think the problem with most young
Great.
people is they just want to be paid. They're not
Yeah.
into volunteering to do that much work without
That's
getting
fair.
compensation. And we believe in
Yeah.
compensating you for your work, and this is going to be very important,
Mhm.
but we do have to raise the funds in order to do it. But I've been
Yeah. Of
absolutely,
course.
we had a fabulous focus group a few months ago, and we invited quite a few young
Mhm.
people, and they were full of ideas of what we could do. So, there are many, many ways that people can contribute. It can be in kind, just your thoughts, your ideas. I would say to you, we're going to want to collect some artifacts, but we have nowhere to put them yet because we have no building or anything. So we'll hold off on that. But,
Right.
there are some small things that we would love to collect and have suitcase exhibits so we can take things in the back of the
Yeah.
van and go around with it so people can touch things.
Yeah.
You want with a
Right.
museum that people have every sensual kind of
Mhm.
effect. You smell it, taste it, feel it,
Yeah.
touch it, what have you. It's very important to do that. All the senses.
For sure. For sure. For sure. So, what would you ultimately say is your vision for the future of Moja? Like, all obstacles cleared. Like, what's your vision for what Moja
Well,
should be?
my vision down the road, what we would love to see is that we could have a larger bus or a container or maybe more than one that we could take to communities and park it. And inside that, you could have maybe a transformative experience with light shows and actual, real things happening inside. This technology would be a bit, it's too expensive for us to even contemplate at this stage. But, there are countries that
Yeah.
develop technology that might want to, you know, contribute that to us. And we could really deck out
Hmm.
a bus or so on and have a much more intense experience. So we'd also love the idea of prototyping this so it could be replicated on another island or, in the Caribbean so
Yeah.
that this sort of thing could be done elsewhere. That's sort of a long dream, but, and also that our people can really connect a bit more through Moja to the other Caribbean islands who have had the same experience
Yeah.
and to our where our ancestors came from, wherever that might be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how can people who are watching this and listening to this support your work, whether they're in Jamaica or abroad? Like, how can they support?
I think the first thing they need to do is to go on our website, which is moja.org. There are a couple dots and WWs involved, but it's basically moja.org. And it stands for
Yeah.
Museum of Jamaican Ancestral Heritage. And when you go on the website, you will see ways to contribute. We have a very secure gateway for people to donate, but
Hmm.
there's also a link for becoming a friend of Moja. And the Friends of Moja means
Yes.
that you can email us, write to us, and get in touch, and then make your suggestions, and we'll get back to you. And how did you find me? How is it you found me?
I found you through Instagram. Like
Through Instagram.
the
Oh, okay,
algorithm
okay.
said
Oh my
this is
God.
something you would like. So I was like, you're right, algorithm.
We got we got over 60,000 hits on that little thing that I said. I can't even believe it because I'm not actually an
Yeah.
Instagram person. I am learning fast. So that was great. Most of the information, if you if you're really interested, you'll want to see the website, which will give you a good idea of what we're planning. And please bear with us
Hmm.
because we haven't been able to do everything yet, but really feel absolutely free to give us $1, $5, whatever. It doesn't matter how much it is. It's the idea that you're supporting this and giving us a chance to move it ahead. I would just give you a quick
Awesome.
little insight. Something really great that's happened in the last few days is that we've made connections with the National Library of Jamaica that can authenticate and
Okay.
help us with research, and also the
Yeah.
the National Library Service, because we need the kids to read, and they
Wonderful.
have an outreach all around the island, so that will help where we can meet and greet and talk to each other. So I hope I haven't said anything too early, but everybody's excited about that, especially me.
That is tremendous news. Of course, of course, of course. That and I really love the focus. I know we talked about Moja's not a children's museum, but it's
Right.
just something foundational. And I'll say
Yeah.
this and tie it back in. Like, this year my wife and I decided to homeschool our children, and a large part of how I'm handling the humanities side of the education. I said I want my sons to learn about Jamaican history. Like it's vital that they learn about this. When we visited my father and my stepmom, I was like, it's important for. I almost wanted to get my sister and brother's books and just be like, what are they teaching you in school, so I can take this to the States with me, because I don't want my sons to feel like, oh, this is just a place where grandpa lives, or it's just a place where, like,
Yeah.
my family's from, but it's actually a part of, like, not only our story but the world's story.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, our IG handle and our Facebook handle is Moja Jamaica. It's very simple. And we're going to be
For
putting
sure.
stories up on there that you can then share with your son or whatever. We're going to start adding,
Yes.
but for now, we're going to have to do quite a lot of virtual museuming until we can get on the
Pod
road properly. Okay, so this is
people.
also where people can help us through sponsorships. We're hoping that businesses will see that if they will be supporting something really special. We will want to do things with food and to be able to bring along some refreshments, maybe to, when we go to a community or whatever. All of this, we just need art supplies or materials and things, books and so on for young people to have. So, I mean, even things that is, if it's not money, there are many ways of contributing to this and supporting it. And I am totally open to new ideas. All right. So we're fluid here. fluid but determined. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sure. Thank you, Chris. I can't thank you enough, and bless up all you and all your listeners. And I really appreciate this opportunity. This has been extremely special. This is a first for us. So thank you, thank you, thank you, Chris. Take care. Be blessed.